A question that we get a lot is, how do you get in alignment in a relationship, with your spouse, your business partner, as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think this is something that we've mastered in the 10 years of being in a relationship and the 3 years being business partners. And being alignment is something that is often overlooked, but is so important.
What's going on? Welcome back to another episode. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how to get into alignment as a couple that's both entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. So we've been getting a ton of DMs lately and just people asking, like, how do you guys just like mesh so well, and just, how are you so well aligned? Because a lot of people, even people that aren't entrepreneurs, they're, as far as couples, just aren't in alignment.
Yeah, and I think it's more common than you realize, because I think a lot of people online like to put the highlight reel on social media, which of course, who wants to talk about their struggles online? It's not the most sexy thing to talk about. And, because I think sometimes too, if we talk about our weaknesses, even to our partners, that's another thing, talk about the things we're scared of and really open ourselves up, we are quote unquote vulnerable to, getting hurt. So I think, the first step is just being vulnerable and being clear on like what you want and what you deserve, even in the online space. And I think that authenticity is what's going to help others feel connected to you as well, even your spouse. So I think, that's a reason why we want to make this, because we have faced a lot of relationship struggles, and we've been together for 10 years now. And so we have had our fair share of troubles, difficulties in our relationships and individually.
Yeah, so let's just dive in. Like, it hasn't always been like this.
No.
Exactly. It was rocky in the beginning, even before we became entrepreneurs. So we were always entrepreneurs at heart. Mm-hmm. I've been flipping and just kind of into entrepreneurship since I was 14 years old. I'm not going to get all into that in this episode, but, our relationship in the beginning, just like any, was, pretty rocky.
I think we should touch on, like, our history, because I think that just getting into specifics on alignment is good, and we should get into that. But I think providing
how did
background.
We get here?
Exactly, because there's a big backstory on how we got here. And, we just really want to hit on that. And we have grown up together. That's another thing, too. So just being together from teenagers and changing so much, and now like being on the same path, and like, how do you get in alignment when you're growing up together? Even so, any of you young couples out there that like are in the same position, maybe you've been together since you were young, or maybe you're still really young in high school or early 20s, and you're still like learning who you are as a person and wanting to still grow as a couple without like losing yourself and without changing too much to where you guys don't even like align anymore, and how to grow together, not grow apart. And that's something we've always been really advantageous about, like in our relationship, as of recently, I should say, about making sure that we are in alignment. That's something that's super important to us.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that I see from like an outsider's perspective into other people's relationships is like just going back to where ours was when, like I said, even before we became full-time entrepreneurs, we weren't like in alignment. Mm-hmm. I was more so, doing my thing. And of course, like, we didn't live together at that time.
We didn't live together until like 6 years into dating, and until we got married.
Yeah, but, we had a kid really young.
That's another thing too.
Yeah, we had a kid really, really young. So it was the end of my senior year. I immediately went right into the workforce.
I was still in high school.
Yeah, you were still in high school. And then, basically I would go work. And then after work, we'd hang out for like a few hours, help take care of Paxton. And then, we weren't really aligned, but
we still really deeply cared about each other. And that's another thing, like, no matter what we were going through, and like, we'll get into the nitty gritty on everything, and like, just be real and raw, like, because there's no point in hiding anything about our relationship. It's something we've grown from, and a lot of you can connect to it. But we even though we weren't in alignment, I think we still deeply cared, and we knew like that, like, we weren't perfect.
Yeah. I've had a lot of issues to work through. Like, I used to be a really like big hothead and just get angry at like the littlest things, and we wouldn't really, like, Mariah would want to communicate about things. I just didn't want to talk about it. I was always the type where I just wanted to just bury everything and just not like open up and talk about things. So I think that's a big thing on getting aligned is, you have to, just anything, relationships, whether it's your spouse, business, anything, is communication. So if you're
getting
not
on the same page.
Yeah, so if you're not open to communication and talking about issues and just like I said, whether it's finances, whether it's just relationship things, whatever it is, if you're not open to communicating, of course you're never going to be in alignment and fix like the underlying issues.
Exactly. I think that's when our relationship changed the most, is when that communication could open up. And some of you listening, I know a lot for women, we want to communicate a lot, and it's typical, like it can be reversed too, of course, but a lot of men have difficulty opening up because I think is like young boys, especially like our generation, were taught, or previous generations, that like, men shouldn't have feelings. And it's not even like saying that your parents said that to you. I think it's just how they showed up in your parenting when you did have struggles and you just were taught to bury things, whereas women are taught to fix things. And so while I'm sitting there wanting to communicate about everything, he wants to bury it and not talk about it. So I think, that's where our biggest struggle was, and where we butted heads a lot.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, just speaking on like behalf of men. We're just, taught to bury our emotions, bury our problems, and just not think about it, and just be strong. But I don't think that's actually like what true masculinity is. I think it is being vulnerable and like digging into those wounds and like those past traumas and childhood traumas, and like letting that stuff come up to the surface so you can solve it and become the person that that you're meant to be, and then like work to be in alignment with your spouse or your business partners, or whatever area of your life. But if you just continue to bury like all of those pains and all of that, of course, like you're never going to be able to get in alignment in any area of your life.
Yeah, I agree. And like that's where we just don't even want to just dive into entrepreneurship per se, because like just so many couples in general aren't in alignment, like even with their goals, like just with anything, like with career trajectories or parenting, or one person wanting to move and like try new things, and one person wanting to remain comfortable. And I guess we've just don't even realize how blessed we are with how our relationship has evolved, and this has gotten even more strong, is we really just go with the flow, and we are really on the same path. Like we're in complete alignment. That's like what I label that as, is just alignment in every area of our life. I think the area we still butt the most heads on, and we're still like learning to navigate, is parenting styles. And I think with me, I still want to be the fixer and like more of the passive parent, and he's more of the direct one where he wants to handle things head on. And so we're learning to meet in the middle. I think with a lot of things, like in relationships, you need to meet in the middle, and you both need to compromise, because I notice with a lot of couples, one person, may want something, and the other person says they'll compromise because they just want to please that spouse, and but then they end up not compromising, and it creates resentment. So I think that that's something that you actually, if you're going to tell your partner, I'm sorry, I'm here, I'm listening to you, but then you don't actually work to make that better or actually start communicating, they're just going to start resenting you, which can happen a lot in relationships. And even if you do make mistakes, it's really hard to change. It's taken you years to start opening up and like getting that communication.
I'd say it probably started in 2020 that's when we first moved in together, because we got married that summer. I was supposed to go to the airlines. That got canceled. Mariah was supposed to go on to get your master's degree. Her program got canceled, and we always wanted to move away from our hometown. So we had an opportunity to move to Phoenix, Arizona. So we just said, like, why not? We wanted to get away from the cold weather and just start something new. So that was the first time we even moved in and actually lived together. So just doing that alone is like, I don't even know the words for it, but like
it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a change from like what I was used to. Like I was used to always just living at home. I lived on my own like for like 8 months when I moved to South Dakota for flight school, and then a little bit when I was doing some flying in Fargo. But other than that, like we never lived together as like a family with
responsibilities, like all of the bills and like just being like normal adults, and just being an adult in general, from high school then college, to taking care of yourself is a lot, and then having to do that while never have living together, moving across the country, during a time like 2020 where like his, Tanner just said his program, my program got canceled, so that stress. But something about us is we've always leaned into uncertainty together. And I guess how you get to that point is just the type of person you are and kind of what you want for your life. I think Tanner was a little bit more risk adverse than I am. I'm literally like down for whatever, and I think you've developed that. But I definitely think it's how you grew up. So just being aware in general of your risk tolerance and your partners, like what you guys, if they're more carefree and you're more uptight, and that's completely fine. But just know like to trust each other, and that trust has to be developed on both sides, and to learn to compromise and meet in the middle. And at the worst case scenario, like I told Tanner when we moved, is his best friend at the time that he had since childhood was saying, why don't we move to Arizona? And I was like, yeah, like sure, let's do it. Like I it sucks, but my program's canceled, and I didn't even really feel aligned with it anyways.
I didn't really feel aligned. Like, I love aviation. I grew up being around airplanes. My dad took me to air shows, and I thought like what I always wanted to do was become a pilot. But once I got to the door of becoming an airline pilot, I really started to realize too in 2020, I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason. So I'm a big believer that like everything that happened in 2020, my program getting canceled, yours, was like secretly a blessing in disguise from God.
Our relationship wouldn't have healed if that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I think it would have got worse, honestly. Who knows if we would even honestly be together.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, like, I believe it was a blessing in disguise, because I realized, like I said, I was at the door of, being able to become an airline pilot, and I realized, like, it's really not what I want, because I did some charter flying and, flying in our hometown in North Dakota, where I was currently working at, and I just realized that first year of, like, actually flying for a career, I missed Christmas, I missed our son's birthdays, and just started realizing, like, where that path was leading to, and I just realized like that's not what I want.
Yeah, it wasn't a big enough, like, flying in that regard, like flying for the airlines wasn't a big enough why to excuse missing out on life with your family and like just living how you wanted. I say if it's like something you're so passionate about and you're willing to take risks, because in general you're gonna have to, then that sacrifice would have been okay. But like it wasn't enough for you because you still had a deeper calling.
Yeah, so like I said, I think everything happens for a reason, and then that's when we had the opportunity, like Mariah said, with my past friend and his girlfriend at that time, to like they had like similar stuff happen too, like they lost their jobs, and they're like, why don't we just go for it? Because we both always said, we want to move to somewhere warm. We always kind of had our eye on Phoenix, and in my head at the time, I thought like I'll get established in the airlines in probably like 3 to 5 years. Mariah's program will be done. I'll be more established, and we could probably move then. And this is just like tying in with like manifesting too. Is like we always set the intention way back, even before that. Like we wanted to move out of like where we grew up and
so we were in alignment with that, even though we weren't like in complete alignment.
Yeah, and the opportunity came faster than what we thought even. And I grew up with, like, I'm not going to lie, like a pretty scarcity mindset around just, like, money and just, like, learning to trust myself.
Going outside of the norm.
Yeah, going outside of the norm. I've always known, like, deep down that I've been meant for more. But, like I said, like, I've really had to work through, I think, you're always going to work through it. You're never going to, like, just fully be healed and just, like, because things are going to happen as time goes on, too. And you're always going to have more things to work through. But yeah, I grew up with really scarcity mindset. So when the opportunity came, Mariah right away is like, didn't even want to think about it. She's like, let's do it. And at first, I was like, well, I got to think about it. I got to weigh out the options. And like, what are we going to do for work? What if it doesn't end up working? And Mariah was just like,
well, then we'll move back.
Yeah, well, what if it does? And worst case scenario,
we take a year off and then we come back.
Yeah, worst case scenario, we can move back. I can be a pilot. Mariah can
go back to school.
Back to school, or she had her bachelor's degree. And yeah.
Yeah. And I think, too, a part of it was, like, just the youth in the rose-colored glasses for life and not really knowing, like, anything that could go wrong. But even something still to this day, I am not sorry for my, I guess, spunk for, like, life and just wanting to take risks, calculated risks, and just go after, like, whatever our dreams are. And, like, spontaneity, I think, like, just being spontaneous and just, you know, doing what we want and being unapologetic.
I agree.
I think that's something I've always been good at because of just, like, my non-traditional upbringing. You know, I have a lot of struggles. Of course, I'm gonna get into this more on, like, my specific podcast episodes, but just a little bit of me growing up with my dad and my mom, who were also young parents, but growing up with my dad and his parents raising me, and then my mom, she had problems with addiction and she still faces that to this day, but it's, you know, a constant battle for her, and so it's really hard. And so growing up, you know, without her or without siblings, and kind of being pulled back and forth between those two realities. And then I had a really, really hard time making friends and being bullied and then being pregnant at 16. So I've always gone against the grain, so to speak. And so I guess I was like, what's the harm? And I guess I've always kind of been a free spirit.
Yeah, I guess my biggest fear moving down here was like, because I was the one that mainly had like funds at that time because you were in college.
We got a pretty hefty check though from our wedding, so that was good.
Yeah, I think we ended up moving here
$4,500 from our wedding, and you had like 2 or something.
Yeah, we ended up moving down here with like $6,000, and this was in 2020, so this was before like inflation, everything kind of went crazy. So it was actually pretty cheap. I think our total
splitting our rent was like $700 a month, and now we're paying like $2,000 a month. So.
Yeah, and in my head back then, even like I said, like moving down here and knowing like splitting rent with our friends and just groceries and everything, I was still having scarcity mindset, like how are we gonna make it? And I was just worried, like I still had like the really 9-to-5 mindset. I was looking for jobs down here, and I applied to do like install like Tesla solar roofs or something. And I
just like completely left field for you.
Yeah, I was just like kind of scrambling.
And even like a tree, like you tried like a whole bunch of stuff, and it was just like
I applied for before we moved down here, I applied for a job to install like Tesla solar roofs, and they said they'd hire me, but we moved down here in July and it was like 120, and I'm like, you're not going to see me on top of a roof at 120 degrees. So I never showed up. I was supposed to start like the 3rd day after we arrived here, and I was just like, that's not for me. And then I applied to like trim palm trees.
Trying to imagine Tanner doing that is just like funny because, you know, like just knowing Tanner from, you know, my whole you know, teenage years pretty much, and just like now I'm just like, it's just so funny, and knowing like thinking of Tanner climbing up there.
Yeah, and the reason being is because moving down here, I had all my hours to fly for the airlines. I was actually supposed to start flying for SkyWest, but like I said, my program ended up getting canceled. And then moving down here, I was looking for different like lower time flying jobs, or just really any flying job in general. But with all the airline pilots getting laid off, all of them that were way more experienced than I was pretty much took and ate up all the low time pilot jobs. So there wasn't even like a mechanic job, because if I could have found like an aircraft mechanic job, I probably would have done that. But yeah, there was really nothing. So I was just looking at different options to get some income coming in. And then I also ended up applying at a golf course to be like a mechanic on their lawnmowers and stuff.
Which is crazy, because if you see us now, that's like the place we walk around all the time.
Yeah, it's
crazy. We didn't even realize it, like full circle.
But yeah, you know, I went to like all these interviews too, and they're like, they saw my resume and like I'm a pilot, and they're just like all looked at me and they're just like, what are you doing here? And then a lot of them were hesitant on even like offering me the job, because they're just like,
or you're just gonna quit, you know? Yeah,
and I was like, I mean, it's kind of hard to not lie there. Like when a pilot, my mindset back then is like when a pilot jobs end up hiring again, like of course like I'm gonna go fly. I'm not gonna trim palm trees or sit on a roof for 120
Yeah,
degrees.
because he was over that. You already did a lot of like manual labor jobs and like worked really hard and then worked really hard and spent a lot of money to become a pilot. So,
Yeah.
you know, you have experience in both, and you're just like, I'm not going to do that when I could go fly.
Yeah, so I was really, at each one of these interviews, I even, told Mariah this. I was just sitting there and I'm just like, what am I doing here? And I just felt like a calling again. Like, I didn't just move 1,500 miles away. I'm living.
To go back.
Yeah, to go back and like to go backwards.
Yeah.
And I think what it really did is it started to get me to realize, like I said, like I knew I'm always meant for more. So
Yeah.
I ended up not taking any of those jobs. And what we ended up doing is we started doing some DoorDash to make some extra money, and started researching like, side hustles. Of course, read the book that every entrepreneur or like aspiring entrepreneur I think reads, is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
That's what started it for us. And I remember like he started, and we'll start talking about like getting in alignment, but I'm sure you'll notice. Like,
all this will kind
story.
of lead to like getting into alignment, like just kind of telling I'm not going to go all into every single thing that we went through in this whole process, but break it down into chunks here. But yeah, started reading the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and just kind of opened my mind to like a whole different perspective on how to make money, rather than like the 9-to-5 mindset. Like you have to work hard and put in hours.
The harder you work, the more you'll make, kind of,
to receive money, and realize like what is money on like a deeper level. And then fell down the whole rabbit hole of just entrepreneurship. And then, like I said, we were doing some DoorDash to make some money on the side. We go drive in the evenings, and we'd make like a couple $100 a day in the evenings just driving. And then while we were doing that, we just started binging, like listening to YouTube videos, podcasts about entrepreneurship,
and
manifesting.
The thing about that though is Tanner started. So he found how did you find it? So like we were researching some YouTube videos while we were doing DoorDash. You found Robert Kiyosaki through, I think, when we started doing books, right? Because you found some CDs or something.
Yeah, well, I've always known who Robert was, and kind of like, saw some reels and stuff or whatever. But it really, like, if you're not focused on something, of course you're not gonna like really care as much. But yeah, I think I stumbled across a YouTube video on him talking about like what is money, and on a deeper level, it's debt. That's what money is. It's literally just created from thin air. And started just binging all of his stuff, listening to his podcast, and I was immediately hooked. And then we started just watching more YouTube videos on different side hustles that we could do and stuff. And then we stumbled upon selling on Amazon. I think that's where usually most people end up starting when they want to come into a side hustle. So what we ended up doing there then, I think I only had one credit card at that time, and I'm like, because I didn't want to use our money, I'm like, it's what I was learning from Robert too, is like debt or like credit or whatever is basically free money if you use it the right way, and you can make more than what you're borrowing it at. So I took a credit card, and I ended up ordering a bunch of products to sell on Amazon. We just watched YouTube videos and trying to piece it all together. Tried private labeling some products, and then ended up completely failing at that. We ended up recouping our funds by selling those products on the side of the road in North Scottsdale. But long story short, like I said, we were like, we decided we didn't want to work jobs, put it that way. And then fell into the whole Amazon thing, and then we just started realizing, like, if you really want to do this and like take it seriously, you need to invest in yourself and like have some sort of guidance, because you can learn a lot on YouTube and piece things together. But we ended up
still missing a lot of context, and you don't really have like that one-to-one. You're putting it together. So essentially you're watching all these videos through the lens that you currently have. So the things that you're hearing are from your current perspective and listening to it through the person, versus when you have like a coach or something, they're able to speak to you where you're at and meet you where you're at, like as far as the way you perceive your situation, and provide solutions to you to help you grow so you can get to that next level mentally, financially, whatever your goals are.
But yeah, I'd say at that point, like I said, Mariah even you actually worked a few jobs when we were here too. She worked at Francesca's at Scottsdale Fashion Square, I think for like a month or so.
It was just like a seasonal job, yeah.
She worked at a Cheesecake Factory.
It was so funny because I had this like outfit. I was like the person who plated all the cheesecake, and I thought it was gonna be this like coffee shop. That's the way they advertised it. Because I was like, oh yeah, that'll be fun. And you make pretty good money there. I think I was like $14 an hour, and for me at the time, I was like, yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But it was just funny thinking my outfit.
Yeah, and then you also worked at like some.
No, I didn't work at the place, but I applied to work there.
You worked at some place for like one day. It was like something with kids, like troubled kids.
I didn't work there though. It was kind of like they had this like because essentially it was they had this like pre-onboarding thing where like you apply and you go to this training to see for sure if it's what you want to do, because they tell you you're working with troubled kids who can like hurt you and stuff. So I was like, I don't feel comfortable with that. So that's like what the training was. I got paid to be there that day.
Yeah, but you know, after all of this, me going to job interviews, Mariah working a few jobs, and you know, just kind of dabbling in things, this is where we really started, I think, coming into real alignment after moving in together, kind of going through all of this. We started to come into alignment and just both agreed and realized like we don't want to work jobs. We want to become entrepreneurs. And like
I think that was the first moment like of alignment as far as the physical. And then that summer we went through like the hardest time of our life, and to like our surprise, no one was there for us. You lost like contact with your best friend for like the first time. Our families quit talking to us, just being blatantly honest, and we just only had each other. And this was the first deep conversation I remember us having, where like you first got all defensive like usual, and then I was like, chill, hey, like I'm not like trying to say anything about you, I'm just trying to have a deep conversation about life and like our goals. And he like got it. He's like, wow, this is clicking for the first time. Like, I've never been able to do this with anyone. And I was like, wow, really? You know?
Yeah, because like I said, like I grew up in like a pretty loving family, but like we never really talked about our problems or issues, and we just kind of buried them and just like, you know, it is what it is type of attitude, and life goes on. So that's kind of just the mentality that I had, and just like I said, kind of always just buried my emotions. And I thought that, you know, too, just being a man, like that's what you're supposed to do. You're just supposed to be tough and just not talk about your problems, and just, you know, put on like a mask, like everything's all right. And you know, look at Robin Williams, where that leads to.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'd say hearing our whole journey now, you've kind of gotten a full picture, and of course you're missing like a ton of little things in there, and all the hardships our relationship faced, and you know, the multitude of breakups in high school and back and forth. And you know, we did long distance for a while. So I think that was honestly the first change of us maturing a little bit, is when Tanner moved away. That was when I was in college, and Tanner moved away for about a year, and we were able to, because I think finding some separate time while you're still young and growing together is going to help you get in alignment, because you actually you actually have to like prove, and you actually have to like figure out if you want to be together, and it's not just like a trauma bond, or it's not just like, you know, being around each other and it's like a habit, you know?
Yeah, because I think, you know, because I moved away for like a year for flight school, and I think it's important for everybody to have some time in solitude to really, I think before you can get in alignment with somebody else, you have to find yourself first.
And what you want out of life. And so, be scared. It's okay to be scared to ask yourself that question, because it might mean change, or it might mean doing something different. And so any of you who are listening who maybe have been, you know, maybe you are in business already, maybe you want to be, and your spouse, you know, isn't fully on board, or maybe you're both already in business and you kind of feel like you're butting heads and you're not really like, and just know you're never going to be in alignment 100% of the time. But that's why something we also do, and we've started implementing like more consistently since 2021, is when we first, like 2020 to 2021, like summer to summer, we moved in
It was
July.
really learning and discovering phase, like more into who we are and what we
as
want.
adults, and like what does that mean, like what do we want to do with our lives. And that's normal in your 20s to begin with. And so I would say that year was like learning. And then the summer of 2021 is where we evolved our relationship to the relationship component. And we really learned, we went through the hardest time of our lives financially, physically, emotionally. Tanner lost a ton of weight. He went from like 200 pounds to 150 pounds or something.
Yeah,
like,
it was
lost
really
a ton
hard because
I fell into a depression.
Yeah, I've always, like, just being completely transparent, I've always smoked weed since I was like 16 years old, kind of fell into like a tougher crowd, and did that up until like about a year ago even, and even struggled on and off, with like addiction like that. But it was really hard because, like I said, or like Mariah was saying, I lost a ton of weight, I think because really, just simply put, what I went through is like a spiritual awakening, and just started having a ton of realizations of just all kinds of stuff, like myself, friends, family, like
business, and the way you perceive the world, like the lens in which you see.
Yeah, essentially, like what I call it is like woke up from the Matrix and just like completely like lost myself, like, and just like questioned everything, questioned reality, questioned like this whole existence, and just really I didn't even eat, and it was just really hard. What I'm getting at is like I think your family and my family were like,
they didn't get it, going from like where we were at to that, and then losing your best friend, and literally we had nobody understood us. We had one friend that was still living in Arizona, and his name's Jamie, and he was the one person that was there for us during that time. Because I think he also was going through similar things, and he was the one person that was there for us at the time that we were still talking to, and telling us like, you guys need to move back. So we moved to back to Bismarck the summer of 2021, and then we moved to Fargo for about a month, and that's when things really got bad. Mentally.
Let's revert back just a little bit. We're not going to go all into it, but we moved here 2020. Like I said, we decided, we got in alignment, like we don't want to work jobs. We literally tried, and it didn't work out.
And then we had to separate from the friends that Tanner said. Like, he quit talking to them. They went through stuff, him and his girlfriend.
But before that, even, like, the reason why we moved back to Bismarck, we went all in, like I said, on selling on Amazon. We originally started by trying to private label stuff. Completely failed at that. Ended up recouping funds from that by literally selling... it was during election year, so I was selling election signs, trying to sell those on Amazon. And then these things called like 3D mask brackets, because everybody was wearing masks or whatever. But we completely failed at that. And to recoup those funds, I ended up setting up a booth on the side of the road in North Scottsdale and sold a lot of it, ended up recouping the funds. And then we started doing...
reselling books on Amazon.
Yeah, reselling books on Amazon. And
that was the first thing that hit.
Yeah, we were killing it doing that. We were doing like 8 to 10K a month just by going to like Goodwills and scanning books. And then we decided, like, let's scale this baby up. We ended up getting a ghetto warehouse in downtown Phoenix.
Tanner saw somebody like get shot there. Oh,
yeah, I watched so much crazy stuff happen there. But we were, limited funds and wanted to get everything going. So it was like 1,000-foot warehouse. It was really ghettoist area of Phoenix. And we started buying books in bulk. We'd buy what's called like a Gaylord. It was like basically a giant box, 800 to 1,000 books in each. We would buy like 20 to 30 at a time, bring them to our warehouse. Well, we'd have to rent a Penske truck to, transport them, get them to our warehouse. We'd scan every single book individually. It was really dirty, really hot too. And started scaling things up that way. But what ended up happening is, again, around 2020, that time, Amazon warehouses were getting completely plumb full with inventory, so they put what's called restock limits on our account, so we couldn't send in any more inventory. So it kind of put a damper on our whole operation, and financially, and then just with everything else happening with like our friend that we moved down here with, kind of going our separate ways and just having a lot of realizations. So we just decided at that time it was best to go back to Bismarck for a little bit and just kind of recenter, recoup, get in alignment again. That's the biggest thing I want to hit on with all of this is, like, you're going to get in alignment, and that doesn't mean, like, you're going to grow and evolve, and you're going to have to get in alignment again and again and again.
And yeah, just realizing that's going to be a part of the process, because you're always growing and changing as a person, and, So that means you're going to grow and change together or apart. So you just have to focus on that. And so that was back in 2021. Went through the hardest summer of our lives, moved to Fargo, North Dakota. And for about a month and a half, 2 months, got an apartment there, like hated our lives. Literally, it was the worst time, miserable, but we, got through it for our son, and he was enjoying himself, and it was just, it was fun. Like we made the most fun out of it, but like really it was like Tanner became like a shell of a person. I was sitting there busting my butt trying to like figure something out as far as the logistics, because if any of you know me, I'm the integrator, he's the visionary. If you haven't read the book Rocket Fuel, talks more about this kind of stuff. And
I would sit in the tub there for like days.
Yeah, like
just
you
like
would sit
depressed and just like not know like what's the next move, like what do we do from here.
And so like I was talking to his friend Jamie that still lived in Arizona, and he was telling me like you guys need to get back down here. And so that's where I left off before we went backwards here to explain. And I was like, Tanner, we need to get back. And I started packing up all of our stuff, and I was like, we can't be here anymore, and we were running low on funds, and I was like, we got to get back. And I was like, nothing's for us here. Like, we can't do anything here. And Tanner was still laying in the room. And I was like, I'm packing our stuff. We're leaving this week, whether you like or not. And keep in mind, too, we had a crappy, rusted out, like 2008
Dodge Caravan.
Yeah. And that thing was, don't get me wrong, though, that thing was the best car we've probably ever owned.
Yeah, those things are indestructible.
Literally, the only thing that went wrong with it was like the thermostat or something. So in like the whole time we drove it back and forth between Phoenix and North Dakota. So we packed everything up, drove to Bismarck, and we just felt free. I felt like in that moment I felt free.
Yeah,
Got out
I felt
of our
like
apartment.
a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. Like, I don't just and all of this too. Like, what I really want to hit on is just like, I don't mean to like push religion. I don't really believe in religion, but more so spirituality and believing like that there is some sort of higher power. Like,
it's okay, T. And yeah, like you just have to have trust and faith, essentially. You have to have trust and faith in God, or, whatever you believe in, your higher power. And I think we all recognize there's something out there. And so essentially, we had just trust and faith. And in that moment, as you can probably tell, through that year of living together and through going the hardest time, of our lives, we really built up that trust with one another. And when I told Tanner, I was like, it is time to go. We need to get back to Phoenix. And at first, he was like, no, I don't know. Let's just stay here. And we kept talking about it for a few days. And I'm like, Tanner, we are going back to Phoenix. Like, there's nothing for us here. We're just going to keep spiraling downward. I was like, don't you want to feel the sun on your face again? When we were there, we expanded. When we came back here, we shrank. We didn't fit in anymore. And once you grow and expand. So another thing I heard online, this is going to explain what I'm trying to say. The reason we have anxiety and depression, the reason we're going through so many hard times, like while we were back home, is because you will shrink. They cannot handle like the situation or the people or whatever. The situation or the people cannot handle the growth that you have brought to yourself. So you will shrink to their expectations, or the environment's expectations, the society's expectations, family expectations you place on yourself because of who you're around, where you are, and like everything. So I was like, we have to go back, and we have to continue that growth. And so after talking about it, of course, I'm not just gonna, make him go against his will. We got in alignment, we sat and we just had a lot of conversations. We've been practicing the last 3 years on deep conversations.
Yeah, I think what really helps us get in alignment too, from just reflecting now and just thinking back, like what we did back then and what we even continue to do today without even realizing it, is like just going for walks, being out in nature. That's what we would do in Fargo, and just talk and like deep.
And our son
not just,
gets to watch us heal too, so it's just been so amazing.
Yeah, and like deep, meaningful conversations, not just like, how's your day going? You're like, what's the weather tomorrow? Like, no, like
we're talking about like what's the purpose of life, essentially.
Yeah, like what are we doing here? And just like,
what do you want to do? Like, we're gonna die someday, so like, what do we want to do? Do we want to spend our whole lives feeling like this? Like, we didn't come this far to get this far. I was like, let's bring our butts back with everything we have. And so we drove our our car to Bismarck, our van, left our son there for a couple weeks to spend some time with family while we drove all the way through the night to Phoenix.
25 hours straight through.
Crashed on that friend's couch and talked to him and tried to get things started. And that's where we took our skill reselling.
Hold on, we came back down here with literally
Nothing.
like $0. We came down here with maybe like $500 in our account and credit cards. That was it.
So we crashed on that friend's couch and we pulled out that old skill that Tanner, has been doing since he was 14. The one skill we started flipping cars together and like odds and ends stuff in Bismarck, while I was in college and you were in your early 20s. So we took that skill and we decided we're not going to do like books heavily anymore because we just didn't like the scaling aspect of it. So we still did that on the side, but
And we needed quick money now.
yeah, we need quick money. So that's
the thing with Amazon is like you can make a lot of money, like I'm sure selling anything on it, but books, for example, there's a process between like sourcing a product, sending it to Amazon, a customer's purchasing it and getting money in your pocket. I'd say probably like a 90-day window before you're going to start seeing money. And we needed like money now.
Anybody can face a hard time. Anybody can, lose their home. Anybody can just have like hardship. And so it's all about the grace and like how you handle the situation. And our son like knew like, mommy and dad, you're having a hard time, but we didn't let him. He got to see how you build something from nothing. And I think that's an invaluable lesson. His needs were always met and our family was there again. Like we started talking to them again, and well, more so they started talking to us again. And sorry, we just laughed like our pain off. And so we went back there, we made some amends. They watched packs for a couple weeks so we could move back down here and get an apartment. And so we're like, we got 2 weeks. We've always had good credit, so that was like something that's always been good.
We brought our dog with us too, so we had our dog with us throughout this whole process as well.
Exactly.
And so 2 weeks.
We started from nothing. We took this skill that we developed and we started flipping furniture. We got a tiny storage unit, used our friend Jamie's truck, the one we talk about. So he let us stay at his apartment. He was kind of our cheerleader during that time, and let us use his truck. And just let us know, like, you're not backing down, you got this. And got a tiny storage unit for like $80 a month. And
the first month was free, so like
yeah.
We were just thinking creatively too, like how can we do this? How can we make it work?
And these are the conversations we had, like you have to get in alignment in this way.
Yeah, so we got this. It was like a 4x8 storage unit. It was really tiny. But, the first month, they had like an incentive. Like, if you sign up, the first month's free, and then it's like $79 a month after. I'm like, boom, right there, let's do that. Buys us 30 days. We don't have to put any money up. Let's do it. And then instantly, we just started getting after it. We took his truck. We took what we knew before. Because I'm not going to go on into this, but when we first lived here, kind of how we got this idea was when we were going to Goodwills and sourcing books and stuff like that, Mariah would often pick up like just little pieces of furniture like dressers, nightstands, stuff like that.
For fun.
Yeah, for fun, refurbish it, clean it up, and then list it and resell it and make
$500 a week probably.
Which was a lot to us, back then.
Paid all of our bills.
Yeah, right there. And then, another time when we were taking out our trash where we lived, the first time when we lived in Phoenix with our friends, one of our neighbors was throwing away a couch, and we're like, hey, what are you doing? This looks like a nice couch. And they're just like, yeah, we're moving. If you want it, go ahead and take it. So we brought it up to our fourth floor apartment. There was an elevator, but we brought it up there, brought it into our apartment, and then our roommates, my friend and his girlfriend at the time, were like, what are you guys doing? We put it in the living room, cleaned it up, took pictures, and we had it sold the next day and made like $300.
Yeah, and we didn't even have to deliver the couch, which is really nice. We didn't even have to deliver it. They came and picked it up, so we're like, wow, this is crazy. It's higher ticket. So fast forward, we moved back down here like a year and maybe change a couple months later, and we started flipping furniture. And then we realized we quickly outgrew said storage unit that we got for $80 a month, and it was like maybe a week after we got it.
Yeah, we filled that sucker up quick. So when we moved back down here, our first strategy as far as like how are we going to get inventory. We just started going to thrift stores and buying pretty much everything that we could that we knew that we could flip.
And we didn't really know at first either, so it took us quite a while to build our systems and like the know-how, even with experience.
I'd say it really took like probably a year until we really had our systems dialed down and like our numbers figured out to make sure that we were actually profitable.
How to like increase profit margins, like how to source properly, how to scale. Like it took a lot of time.
How to automate a lot of it and like just work efficiently too.
Yeah, exactly. And so we decided, you know, we can either get a bigger space or we can kind of keep doing what we're doing. We started making some good money, but we said let's just go for it because we don't want to just half-ass everything we're doing. So we decided we're gonna get a bigger storage unit in the same little complex thing that we were in, and or the little storage units that we were in. So they had like a bigger unit, and they allowed us to move into that one, but we had to pay for it all right away. And it was like $180 a month. And so like we're like, oh my gosh, you know, but we just dove for it and went after it and filled that sucker up pretty quick.
And a lot of the inventory that we were getting, we didn't even like clean it or anything at first. But how we actually got power, we robbed it from the storage unit. I ended up buying two 50-foot long cords from Harbor Freight and attached them together because there was like one outlet that was at like the whole storage unit, and we plugged it in and had it going across the whole parking lot. And
no one was ever there though. Like
every once in a while there'd be someone that would pop in because it was more of like an automated storage unit where like you just pay online and they'd give you a gate code, so it worked out really well. But every once in a while I saw a guy, like a worker, just pop in and check things out, and he never said anything, but he'd give us some weird looks just like what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
But,
and another thing too is, so after we got Jamie's truck, we had to give it back to him because he we didn't have to give it back, but like he needed it back because he has a food truck, and he like crashed his car. It's not funny, but just if you knew the situation was funny. And so he took the truck back. We couldn't use it. And so we just trust ourselves, had that faith, leaned into each other, and really discussed and said, you know, another thing with entrepreneurship in general, you know, in life, but especially in entrepreneurship, is you need to make decisions and you can't just sit on things. If you can't just wait for life to happen to you. So we took charge and we know how to make decisions quickly. That is something about us that we've developed and gotten alignment with, is we always make decisions
and I
quickly.
think like backing yourself into a corner is like, we backed ourselves into a corner so many times. Like we don't have time to think, like, and I think that's where so many people go wrong, is like that want to either start something or do something just like,
sorry,
I need to think about it. You don't need time to think about anything. You need just information, and then implement that information, and then make mistakes and take action.
You can't. How could you possibly think? How could you possibly just sit there and think about something? Of course, you have to think a little bit. Like it takes some sort of like contemplating to figure out what's the best course of action. But how can you possibly think your way out of a situation or into a situation with your current perspective, and you have like a limited perspective because you've never done it before? So the lens in which you're looking at something, of course, like you can't make the best decision for the future because the future you is 10 steps ahead of where you're at now. So like how can you, without just doing it and without just taking the action, taking the risk, how can you just make the best decision right this minute for future you? Do you get what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so what we ended up doing, like our friend Jamie, like Mariah said, ended up taking his truck back because he needed it for his food truck. So we were, for like about a week, we were kind of just like, what should we do? We were using our van to haul stuff, and what ended up happening, and this was the tipping point, or like the breaking point where like we needed to do something different. We tried loading a couch into the back of the van, and then Mariah was closing the end gate and broke out the back window.
If you could see Tanner's face.
I was just sitting there and I was just like,
the goodwill, like, oh my gosh. And plus Tanner, with being previously like a hothead, like I was like, oh my gosh.
I handled it pretty well though.
That was the first like time where we like, because we were going through so much that like, you know, we were used to having conversations about stuff instead of just like getting mad at each other. And this time he just looked at me and I felt so terribly Because I also ran into a pole with our van, so I just like felt so bad. Like, I'm not driving this thing anymore.
I think the biggest thing that we learned through all of this too is at the end of the day, none of this is real. Money's not real. Like,
We're just doing it for fun.
I say all the time that we live in like a simulation, and like at the end of the day, this is all just like a made up system, and you just gotta treat it like a video game. And what we really learned through all of this is just you just gotta laugh through times like that, and not just take life so seriously. Because that's what I did before, and it's like I'm a big believer that everything and everyone is energy, and if you're just like if your energy like I was before, just let every little thing just piss you off, and have a victim mindset that it's like everything's happening to me instead of just like everything's happening for me. The reason why we couldn't work jobs like we said when we first moved here is because it's like God or the universe trying to tell you like you're meant for something more. The reason why like this is just my perspective on how I view things when things are quote unquote going wrong now. When the back window broke out on the van, I viewed it as like God or the universe's way of like kicking us in the ass, like, okay, it's time for the next step. You can't just stay where you're at. If you want to get here, you can't just continue to do the same thing
and expect different results.
Yeah, it's like what Albert Einstein said, like the definition of insanity is like waking up and doing the same exact thing over and over and expecting to get a different result. It just doesn't make sense. Exactly. So, what we ended up doing is just made a decision that same day and just like, we got to do something.
We got a box truck through Penske.
Yeah,
we got the bigger storage unit.
Yeah, we got the bigger storage unit, and then we ended up leveraging what we had left on a credit card because to get a box truck from Penske.
They had to pre-authorize, which they didn't fully charge us, so that's good. But we had enough to pre-authorize a week.
Yeah, I think even when they tried to pre-authorize it, we were short like $100 or something, so I had to go pay like $100 just to pre-authorize that first week so they could give us the box truck. We got the box truck then, and then boom, we really just started getting after it every single day, picking up furniture, cleaning it up, listing it, selling it.
That's how we stumbled into couches, because we got the most high ticket items were couches for us, and of course it's going to be different for every market. And we started hitting like really big months and, worked our way out of debt, started investing into mentorships. We were living really comfortably. We started like living again. It was like such a breath of fresh air. And, a year and a half later, here we are and everything we've done. And we've just gotten more and more and more into alignment as a couple, as business partners. And I think something too, people ask us, how do you get in alignment? Of course, this is a long-winded answer to a pretty seemingly simple question. But there's a lot of context that goes into it, especially for us. And just knowing that we have gone through a ton of trials and tribulations, but just knowing that your partner is your partner, that your partner is not the enemy, your partner is not the person you should be battling with. Your partner is the person that is on your team and should be the person that you are communicating with, that you're having deep conversations with, that you're getting on the same page. And I think too, just depending on where you're at, if you haven't found a partner yet, making sure that you find a partner that's in alignment with the expectations that you have for your life. So if you want to move, if you want to be a business owner, they have to respect that, and finding someone with similar goals or that could respect those goals is super important. If that's super important to you to be able to be a business owner and travel or move to a different place. Luckily, I think that's just luck, honestly, that we both wanted to move, that we both kind of like business, but it's also just trusting each other and knowing no matter what we do, like we just follow each other, and knowing that through everything, it doesn't matter if we were working jobs, if we were living in North Dakota, if we were living here, if you moved away, if we had a kid young, if we making nothing down to nothing, if we are in debt, if we're billionaires, we're still going to choose each other first. And that makes everything else easy because nothing else matters because you have everything.
I agree.
And I think that's the biggest thing. And like, all I ever wanted for us is to have our son live together, now take care of our dog together, and walk around in the sunshine, go to the beach, travel, meet amazing people, help other people, because like everything we've been through now, Like, we want to help other people because we know we can help people with everything we've been through, whether it's starting with nothing, starting with, you know, a little something, a little previous knowledge, scale, help you in your relationships. Of course, we're not like specific relationships or life coaches or anything like that. We don't have any formal training, but I think life is the best training.
Yeah.
Honestly, experience. And this is like the first time that we realize that we have a lot to offer just beyond business for people.
I agree.
Because
I think my mind before was always just like, as far as like showing up online and just who I am is just like business. But I've just been realizing too, even just
You're
recently,
Tanner. You know, you're not.
is like, yeah, I'm more like, I don't just want to be like a robot and just like, hey, you know, this is how you, I don't know.
Start flipping couches.
Yeah, this is how you start flipping couches. This is how you sell on Amazon FBA. Like no, like this is.
Yeah, I'm just Tanner,
like,
and this is who I am.
Yeah,
you know?
Everything.
I think just showing up is a personal brand, and showing a part of our personal brand is our family. That's our strong point. Showing up together, all of us.
Yeah.
You know, and just being us, because a part of who we are is business. A part of who we are is a couple. A part of who we are is everything we've healed through. Part of who we are is people who live in Arizona and love to travel and want to help others. Like, that's who we are. We're not just resellers. We don't just want to teach people reselling. We want to just help people in all facets of their life, at whatever capacity that is, whether through our content, through close proximity mentorships, through whatever. And at the end of the day, we just want to like help guide people. A big part of what we want to do too is public speaking. Both of us, we have both a lot of the same goals.
Yeah.
And the funny thing too is once you spend so much time with your partner and they become your best friend, and we never, like, this is genuine too, we used to fight every single day. It was like we were like cats and dogs.
Yeah.
And before, and like it was just like petty, right? And it wasn't like, we had a lot of bad fights. I'm sure anyone who is watching this who knows us personally, you probably know, but if you don't know us now and you don't talk to us now, you are missing out. Because the people we have become and helped each other become is like, I don't even know the word for it.
It's just night and day. It's like,
yeah.
What I tell Mariah is like, I literally, just thinking back to like just speaking for myself, like old Tanner, like he's dead.
I know, you're like a completely different person, but you're the person that you were always meant to be.
Yeah.
And you're still a pilot. But your bigger purpose now is
starting a flight school. And just like, and what I really want to do as far as aviation now is, like I said, aviation side hustles, flipping, that's not who I am. It's an extension of like who I am. But as far as like what I want to do with aviation now, is start and grow a flight school and just really like inspire the youth to be inspired, you know, about aviation. And something I'm going to start doing too now here in Arizona. So if you're ever here, hit me up on Instagram. But something I'm going to start doing is volunteering at this air museum in Mesa and giving rides in like their old World War II airplanes.
Yeah, there's only a few, like there's in, what is it called?
It's the B-17 bomber. It's an old World War II airplane, and there's only 3 that still fly to this day, and they actually have one there. And
they said Tanner could get to fly it. He just has to show that he genuinely cares. You have to go through a lot of training, and like you just really have to take care of the heritage and not just make it about the plane. But yeah, he'd have the blessing of being able to fly those cool airplanes, and just bring you guys along for that journey as well on social media and in person if you're ever in town. But yeah, I'd say another thing too, we never judge each other. Like through his addiction struggles, me, you know, learning to love myself as being someone who was bullied and like not really like having a voice. So we didn't like shame each other for like our shortcomings. We were just there for each other and just loved each other. Like, that's it, you know?
Yeah.
And just the points though where I did like have like to call you like and say, Tanner, this isn't good for you. I see like your potential, like whether it's friends, whether it's the things you're doing, whether it's your behavior, and you know, you do the same for me. But just knowing like that's not a love, you know?
Yeah.
And so we to this day, like we've gotten better and better at it, but just being able to call it for what it is and knowing that it's like from a place of love, and knowing that through time we built up the trust where both of us trust each other to like that it's in our best interest. It's not out of like hurt or anger or whatever. It's just simply trying to help each other and help each other grow. And yeah, what I was saying is we used to fight like cats and dogs. Now like it's just like petty like funny stuff. But we really have just healed immensely, and it's just so alignment now is like second nature to us. Getting back in alignment, we say that like all the time. Okay, we need to get back in alignment as far as business. Let's hash it out. And just knowing like you're not going to always feel that way all the time, and just have ebbs and flows, and sometimes like they're just going to get on each other's nerves, and that's normal, you know. But yeah, I'd say that's like a very long answer. And this is something we could talk and make more episodes about and stuff together.
Yeah, I think that's where we're going to wrap it up for this one. We'll definitely make more episodes.
If you have any questions on this, definitely let us know. I don't know if you can leave comments on podcasts. I'm sure you can message Tanner if you have any specific requests or questions on this, but we should make more content on this type of stuff too.
Yeah, we definitely will. Hope you guys got value out of it, enjoyed it. Other than that, we'll see you guys in the next one.